Casey Barnes, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you so much for having me.
Things are starting to open up, thankfully, with live music now in Australia. But going back to your 2020, how bad was it for you? How tough did it get?
It's a really good question, and I guess one that you do get asked a fair bit. And I guess the best way to answer it is, we were lucky in some ways because if you step out and look at the whole situation, the whole music industry was stuck in this whole predicament, and not just the artists, but the guys behind the scenes that help put on your shows. And there's a massive team that are obviously part of that. So the entire industry got hit pretty hard, and it definitely was really tough. But we were fortunate enough to still be able to do some shows towards the end of last year and get out on the road. And we did a bit of a regional Queensland tour. We got out to Mount Isa and Rockhampton and Townsville and a few places that you normally wouldn't get to go to. So we were lucky, but in saying that, it was pretty bloody tough at the same time. It's especially when you release an album at the start of the year and you normally back it up with an extensive sort of national tour and stuff. And yeah, that was pretty tough.
Yeah. Us Victorians forget that up there things weren't quite as bad. You were
and it's spot on. We were, very fortunate that Queensland started to come back online a little bit sooner than some other states, and credit to the Queensland government, Arts Queensland, they provided some opportunities just to get out and tour again. So that was fantastic. But thankfully, we are back doing shows, and we're actually heading to Melbourne next week. So for our first show in a long time down there. So that's going to be something to look forward to.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. I just wanted to go back away and talk about your influences growing up. What were the albums that were important to you?
Well, I was very lucky that my mum and dad both had a pretty extensive record collection, and my mum in particular would just have records playing all the time. That's all I can remember. She'd be doing the housework and there'd be all sorts of different stuff playing. But I guess the biggest influences for me were probably James Taylor, especially from the country side of things, and the Eagles, Elton John, ELO, the Beatles. And then interestingly, as I got a little bit older, my first ever compact disc, my first ever CD as a kid was Bryan Adams' Greatest Hits. And so I remember taking that album away and sitting in my bedroom and trying to learn every single song on guitar. And then fast forward a few years later, it's funny how the universe works, but my first big break in music was getting to open for Bryan Adams for A Day on the Green. So that was a spin out, how that all sort of worked out.
Fast forward to now, and you've got a great new single, Come Turn Me On, which is perhaps a little bit more poppier than usual. Is that a direction you can see yourself going into the future?
Definitely. I've always sort of teetered on that edge of country and pop and a bit of rock, and I don't mind that. If you look back at talking before about the different albums and artists that I was influenced by as a kid, there's a real blend of a bit of everything in there, and I don't necessarily mind that. It's nice to see that mainstream radio is starting to embrace that modern country sound, which is great. And I know that they've been playing, Keith and Morgan Evans and a lot of those sort of Aussie country acts, which is fantastic. And I guess definitely can see that happening a little more. So this track that we've come out with was a deliberate sort of direction that we wanted to head in. And I worked with two songwriters over in Nashville, Brown and Gray, they're a country duo, and they'd co-written two songs on my previous album, Sparks Fly, and a track called We're Good Together. So we had a good thing going with the three of us, and we thought we'd keep it going.
Yeah. So tell me about the Brown and Gray sessions. How did they work? You show up, I suppose you had some ideas, they had some ideas?
Yeah, and it's interesting how it all happened. I got introduced to Sam, they're actually a couple. They're married now, Sam and Casey. And I met Sam in LA when I was over there about 18 months ago. And we got introduced together, and then a couple of weeks later I was going to be in Nashville, and the guy sort of said, you should get together and maybe see if you can do some writing, and that's where it all sort of started in person. But I guess the challenges of last year made that impossible to do that sort of thing. So we had to adapt, and similar to what we're doing, there was a lot of Zoom writes happening. So, I'd often have a phone full of different ideas and concepts and stuff, and I'd sort of bring that to them, and we'd adapt and take it from there. And I actually really enjoy doing the Zoom writes because it makes it still possible to collaborate, even though you can't physically travel and stuff.
Yeah. You spent quite a bit of time in America writing and performing. What have been some of your favorite memories of your trips over there?
Man, lots and lots of things. I mean, I started going to the States when I was 16, believe it or not. I went to school over there and studied in Colorado, and then I went back over and worked in North Carolina in summer camps and all that sort of stuff, working with kids. So I've always loved the States, but I think one of my best memories was it was back in, I'm thinking it might be 2016. There was an opportunity that somebody sent me a link. It was an opportunity to open this festival in California called Country Summer that happens just out of San Francisco, and you had to audition or send in an application to open, and if you won, you got to play main stage on the in front of like the full crowd. And so I sent in my audition, and cut a long story short, we won. So we got to fly from Australia, the whole band, over to the States, and Lady Antebellum were one of the big headliners that year. And that was, I love those guys anyway. So it was just that was something I'll never forget. Great opportunity.
What do you know about recording now that you didn't know the first time you stepped into a studio?
Oh man. I guess the whole recording process has changed so much since I first started. And I guess there'd be a lot of artists that would talk about, the old days where it was done on tapes and very, very different to the digital age, and being able to now go back and fix problems and issues. I think if I could go back and tell myself that, is take the pressure off yourself, because when you first started out, you sort of, you'd be so conscious of trying to nail every take that you would sometimes lose the creative magic that you need sometimes. So I think when you can learn to take that pressure off and just, engross yourself into a song, that's when you tend to deliver your best moments and not stress about whether it's the perfect take or not, because that's not always the most important thing.
Yeah. As we were saying before, you're about to embark on a tour. Tell me about your band.
My band, well, we've been together for a long, long time, and we're all best mates. We're like a little family on the road, and we're all very close. My drummer, he's probably been with me for the longest, and he's getting a little bit too famous for my liking now, to the point where when I do merch signings at the end of the set, there's too many people asking when's Wazza coming out as well, because everybody wants to get a photo with Wazza, because he's a very funny guy. Like we have a lot of banter in our set where, he'll jump on and crack a few jokes, and he actually sings a couple of songs as well in the set. So we like to deliberately make our live show a little different. We don't want it to be like every other show that you go and see. So we do a few things that are different, and because we've all been playing together for so long, we've got that relationship and that chemistry between the four of us, where it's where we can do that sort of thing. But we're all really good mates.
The Gympie Muster, the iconic Australian Music Festival, is on the list of gigs for this tour. What is it about the muster that you like?
I think it's got to be one of the most unique festivals that we've got on the calendar. No, not just for country music, but all genres. And it's I think it's really popular with punters because you can escape in the middle of nowhere, pack up your swag or go camping, and there's a real community vibe about that whole movement. And I know a lot of people just look forward to that side of things. And then for some people, the music's a bonus. It's really interesting because the camping and the that side of things is sometimes the biggest draw card, and then for others, it's the music. So there's this unique sort of mash of both of those things together. But it's just such an iconic festival, and it's in an amazing location. It's always one of the best on the calendar, and we're stoked to be part of it again.
Yeah. Is there anyone you look up to for inspiration in regard to stage performance, what they say on stage and the way they present themselves?
So many. I mean, that's one of the things I love the most about, going and watching a concert when you're going to see your idols or people that you've looked up to, is just studying their stagecraft and what they do. And, there's probably lots of examples. I mean, Bryan Adams, I just found him to be just so authentic, and there's, whenever you go and watch him play, and I know he did the AFL Grand Final a few years ago, and I was lucky enough to be at that grand final in the crowd, and there's no bells and whistles. He hits all 100% live. His band plays live. It's the real deal. It's just really authentic talent, and I respect that. And then there's other acts like Keith Urban. I'll go and watch him because he's just such a great entertainer, so engaging, obviously an incredible musician, and his show is just, really does set the benchmark in our genre, I think. And so I love, go and watch him play whenever I can.
Yeah. I've seen quite a few live clips of you where you're singing with no guitar around your neck. Do you ever see the day when you will just be a singer and not play guitar?
That's a good question, because it's funny how it started out. It was the complete opposite. I really started out playing guitar first, and I was quite shy and I was reluctant to sing. And then when I started doing live gigs, it was always with the guitar and vocal, and sort of like a security blanket in a way, having that. And then over the more recent last few years, I've gone the other way, and I actually really enjoy putting the guitar down and running around like a lunatic and engaging with people on stage and having a bit of fun. So it wouldn't surprise me if one day that is sort of where I head, but I still do love to break it up a little bit, and it's nice to grab a guitar and do an acoustic ballad just to break up the set. So it's hard to say, but definitely love how things have changed.
Yeah. And what is the main guitar you use on stage these days?
Beautiful Australian Melbourne-made guitar called Cole Clark. Miles Jackson and the team down there are amazing, and they make some beautiful Aussie-made guitars. So I've been using theirs for quite a long time now, and absolutely love them. They're fantastic.
Yeah. Cole Clark guitars are known for their projection live on stage, but is that also your main songwriting guitar?
It is, yeah. It's sitting just right. Oh, you can't really see it. It's actually sitting over my shoulder. It sits there, and it is. I do have a couple of guitars, but there's one in particular that I sort of go to and use most of the time. I just love them. I mean, they sound fantastic acoustically, but I really find, I'd say you'd struggle to find a better guitar plugged in through a PA. They're whatever they do with their pickups and the way that sort of side of things works is just amazing.
Yeah. You're known for doing some covers on stage. We'll be adding any new covers for this tour?
Well, we have got a new show for this year. We've gone back and sort of redesigned the show and put a few new originals in, which is the new single. But there are a couple of covers in there, but there's a couple in particular that they always go down well. So we find it hard to take them out of the set because the crowd loves them so much. But I mean, there's a couple of Bruce Springsteen songs that I've always loved, and we often chuck those in the set, and I like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. Come Turn Me On is the single. Where are you at with a new album?
We're actually ticking along pretty well. Did a lot of writing last year, so had a heck of a lot of songs ready to go. And then at the start of this year, the guys that have produced a lot of my stuff are based in Melbourne as well, Michael Painter and Michael De Laurentiis from M Squared Productions, and they're incredible songwriters too. So we sort of got back in the studio and started to do some writing and some recording, and we're actually, quite a ways into what will be the next album. It's not, it's actually not that far away, but one of my biggest lessons is I have to learn to be patient sometimes, and so we'll probably just drop a couple of singles first, and then the album maybe towards the end of the year.
Yeah. So once this leg of gigs is over, what's on for the rest of the year?
We're working on more shows at the moment, so definitely be announcing more gigs, more touring, and then concentrating on finishing this album and getting back into that that cycle of releasing new singles and preparing for the next album. And if Chuggy has anything to do with it, he won't be having me sitting around for much time at all, mate. He's usually got me doing something. So very grateful to have both himself and the guys at Chug Music, helping me. So it's made a huge difference.
Yeah. And what's the grand plan for Casey Barnes?
Look, the grand plan, I mean, I'm very thankful at the moment that I can do what I love for a living and live comfortably and be able to we obviously can get back to doing some touring now, but I guess when these restrictions ease and we get back to a little bit more normality, I'd love to get back to the States. We had a lot happening over there just before this all happened. We'd signed with a big booking agency in Nashville called WME, and we'd been planning to do some touring in the States. So I'd love to get back over there and do some more shows. But in the meantime, very happy to be. I think one of the things we forget about is how far ahead we are in Australia with our restrictions. We're very lucky that we're not living in the States or the UK and some of those other countries. We can actually enjoy live music and get back and actually do some shows. So we're pretty lucky.
Right, Casey Barnes, been great to chat. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.